All right, today we're going to tackle a little piece of Portuguese grammar that I promise you unlocks a whole new level of storytelling. It's called the pluperfect, and it's all about how you talk about the past before the past. Sounds a bit complicated, but it's way easier than you think. So, we all know how to talk about the past, right? I went to the store. She saw a movie. Simple. But what happens when you've got a couple of things that both happened in the past and you need to show which one happened first? Yeah, that's where it can get a little tricky for language learners. I mean, really think about it. How do you clearly say that one action was totally finished before another past action even got started? It's a situation that comes up all the time in stories, but you need a special kind of tool in your grammar toolbox to handle it. Okay, check out this sentence. We have two things that happened in the past. I arrived at school, and the class started. So, which one came first? Well, that phrase right there, tinha começado, had started. That's our pluperfect. It makes it absolutely crystal clear that the class was already underway before I even walked through the door. And here's where Portuguese gets really, really cool. It doesn't just give you one way to solve this little time travel problem. Oh no, it gives you two pretty elegant solutions. You've got a simple form and a compound form, and we're going to break down exactly when and how you should use each one.
So let's just get the official textbook definition on the table. The pretérito mais perfeito, that's the pluperfect, is simply the tense you whip out when you need to talk about that earlier past action. You can basically think of it as your own personal grammar time machine.
So here's the main difference in a nutshell. For your day-to-day conversations, you're almost always going to hear and use the compound form, tinha começado. But when you get into more formal stuff like classic novels or newspapers, you're going to find this shorter, more literary version, começara. Let's start with the one you're going to be using like 90% of the time. This is the compound form, and it's the real workhorse of the pluperfect.
And you know what the best part is? It is so easy to put together. You just need two pieces. First, you take the verb ter and put it in the imperfect tense. That's your tinha, tinhas, tinha, and so on. Then you just add the past participle of whatever your main verb is. So, tinha feito, I had made. See? Simple as that.
And you can see right here in our source material, it lays out that formula perfectly. You've got the verb avoir in the imperfect plus the past participle. That is the simple, super consistent foundation for the spoken pluperfect.
All right, now for the fancy one. Let's talk about the elegant, sophisticated sibling, the simple form. This is the tense that's going to make your writing sound way more refined, and it'll make reading formal texts much, much easier.
Now, you might look at a conjugation chart for this tense and think, whoa, that looks intimidating. But just forget the chart. Seriously, there's an incredibly simple hack to form this tense for almost any verb, and once you know it, it honestly feels like a superpower.
Here we go. It's just 3 easy steps. Step 1, start with the ls form of the regular past tense, like fizeram, they did. Step 2, just chop off that mum right at the end, so you're left with fizer. And step 3, add the pluperfect ending. For el, it's just a, so you get fizera, I had done. That's the whole trick. Let's see this little magic trick in action. Estiveram becomes estivera. Foram turns into fora. Quiseram becomes quisera. Do you see that pattern? It's so consistent. Once you get this rule down, you've basically unlocked hundreds of conjugations without having to memorize a single new chart. Okay, so now that we know how to make both forms, let's see how they really work in the wild. We're going to do a little transformation, turning everyday speech into its more literary equivalent. This is a really great way to see just how directly these two tenses relate to each other. We'll take a completely normal spoken sentence and give it a little formal, written glow-up.
So here's our starting point. Someone had given the information to the police. Totally normal, right? You'd hear this in any conversation. And notice that compound form, tinha dado.
And now let's just apply what we just learned and watch what happens.
Would you look at that? Tinha dado just becomes the single, elegant word dera. It means the exact same thing, but the feel is totally different. It's so much more concise, more formal, more powerful. And the exercises right here in our source material show that this isn't just some one-off trick. It is a consistent rule. Tinha feito becomes fizera. Tinha sentido becomes sentira. This right here is the key to bridging that gap between how Portuguese is spoken and how it's written. Now, just listen. Listen to the flow of this sentence from a literary context. She had married, had had children, but none of that had altered her strong and authoritative manner. Did you hear that rhythm? Casada, tivera, altera. It creates this flow that you just don't quite get with the compound form. This is the simple pluperfect in its natural habitat.
Okay, wow, we have covered a lot of ground. We went from this whole problem of the past before the past all the way to two distinct and really powerful solutions. So let's just boil it all down to the absolute essentials.
So here's the bottom line. It's all about context. If you're just chatting with friends, stick with the compound form, tinha feito. It's what everyone uses. But if you're writing a formal paper or digging into a classic novel, you're going to need to recognize that simple form, fizera. And just remember, no matter which one you use, they both do the exact same job. You know, this tense is so much more than just another grammar rule to memorize. It's a real tool for better, clearer, and much more sophisticated storytelling. It lets you weave together these complex narratives entirely in the past. So I guess the only question left is, what stories are you going to tell with this new power?